Hey folks, welcome to the Prepared Homestead. This is Travis. Thank you all for stopping by to watch. So I had some ideas about this video, but I'm not exactly sure where to go with it. So I'll try to hopefully not make it a big old rambling video. But things are getting crazy, right? We all know that. It's like every day this steady progression. A steady progression to some type of big conflict, right? I mean, the U.S. military is stocking up and building up, right? They're sending troops and ships and planes and all kinds of stuff. All kinds of various reports that indicate it's coming, right? I've heard from personal sources of people that I know and trust that it's not so much that they may have intel. You know, it's not like they're sitting in the Joint Chiefs of Staff, meetings and they're filling me in on what's going on. It's not that. It's just that people that they dealt with intelligence and they've been at war and they're very smart people, and they point out some of the stuff that's going on and how their opinion is that things are about ready to pop off. And I think the big question is if a scenario of some type of Middle Eastern war or even a world war pops off, how will that affect us here? And it's not that I don't have any concern for the people that are in the Middle East or wherever. It's not that. I mean, of course I would be concerned with those people. It's lives. It's their, what is it? We're all God's children kind of thing. But my primary focus is my family and my tribe. So how is it that it will affect us? And that's probably the big question right now. We don't know because we don't know exactly what's going to happen. Are we just going to see an expansion in the Middle Eastern war? Could we see, Lebanon? I guess Hezbollah is getting ready to have a big, important speech tomorrow. Or is it tonight? There's the time difference, so I'm off on that. It's either tonight or tomorrow. Iran, it's just wanting to get more involved. Yemen is involved now in some form or fashion. Things are heating up, right? We know that. But is it just going to stay contained to that? Yesterday, or a couple of days ago maybe, the director of the FBI stated that Islamic extremists doing terroristic acts here in the United States is the increase is becoming more real. There's a strong possibility that stuff's going to happen. We've watched all kinds of millions of people cross the border, and some of them are from places that might come here to do us harm. So that's a possibility. I guess where I'm trying to go with this is that probably the more likely scenario is much like what happened in Ukraine and Russia, and much what has happened in the past with Afghanistan and Iraq and other places, that it will somewhat be contained to that area, and we may feel certain after effects. That's probably the more likely. That's the safer likely scenario, right? But as preppers, we can't live on that safe likely scenario because we know that there's always a chance that something unlikely. Is it likely that your house will burn down in a fire? Well, statistically, it's not a likely chance that your house will burn because of a fire, but you still have insurance, right? Statistically, especially out here, is it likely that my truck will get stolen out where I live? No, statistically, it's not likely. But I still carry insurance on it. You still lock your truck. You don't leave your keys in it. That kind of stuff. So it's the same thing. We have to understand that even though it may not be the more likely thing that happens, as all of this intensifies, it becomes more and more, I guess, a higher probability that things could more directly affect us. So we have to be prepared for that. And that means, obviously, all the things that I talk about, the food, the water, the tribe, planning, all that kind of stuff. The other things, and this is not a show and tell video. I've had a few people ask me more specifics on gear. It's been a long while since I've made one, and I've made some personal changes and upgrades. And you know how it is as you're using it, because I wear my gear often, several times a week. It's not just a once in a while thing. I put it on, you see me rucking, and I wear it around the farm sometimes. And it's not because I'm paranoid or think that I need it. It's so that I become comfortable with it. That's why. So as you do that, you figure out what works and what doesn't, what's comfortable, and upgrade, all that kind of stuff. Today's not the kind of video that's going to go into that. I may do a video soon on that. But the point that I even had this out, because I wasn't even planning. This just happened to be in the truck. That's the honest truth. And I thought, oh, I'll get this out. Is as all this kind of gets crazier, should you keep certain things like this on you at all times? Now, a lot of you would probably say you should probably keep stuff like that on you at all times, all the time. I think a get-home bag is something that everyone should have. Get-home gear. I'm not a big into bugging out. For me, bugging out, where we live and for us would be if our house catches fire and we're unable to put it out, and we grab some gear and we run out. Or if there's a tornado coming right at our house and we have to get out of the house and go seek shelter. Or if, a bunch of bad guys are coming down the driveway and I know that I can't hold them off, so we, head out the back door and then we, regroup and retake the home. That's bugging out for me. I mean, could there be a scenario that we just up and leave our home forever? It's possible, but it's not likely, so it's not a high priority. But we all go places, Our home, whether you live out in the sticks like me or you live in the middle of the city or something, that's our base of operations. And that's where most of our gear and our supplies and everything's at. But we're out and about. We're busy people, and I can't remember. I read years ago the statistics of the average person spends far more time away from their home than they do in their home. Because of work and things like that, church and civic things that they're doing. So the odds are, if something happens, you might not be home, and what if it is a terroristic attack? Even if it's not where you're at, there's been so much hype, not just because of what's going on in the Middle East right now, but what's happened in the last 3 years. People are on edge. People are just, there's so many people that they're trying to live their lives. They're trying to ignore the issues because they're so drained. They're so fatigued from all of the stuff that's going on. And if something fairly big, fairly significant and dangerous happened, it's quite possible that people all over could start panicking. Nothing may happen in your town. You may be at Walmart or the grocery store or the doctor's office, and nothing has happened in your town, but maybe in your state or the next state over, or even across the country, something really big happened, and causing people to panic, because it's different even than back during 9/11. Now everything is so instant, absolutely instant. People will know it. If there was some type of major terror attack or a false flag or an inside job or whatever, people would know about it all across this country within moments after it happens. And would it cause them to panic? It's possible. So should you have some things just in case that happens? What if the attack actually does affect where you're at? What if roads get shut down? What if there was some kind of big attack from a foreign entity, like an EMP or nuclear attack? Maybe not the most likely scenario, but still, it's becoming well within the realm of possibility right now. So my point is, as I'm, of course, rambling, is to have at least some things with you so that you can get home. Because that's probably a more likely scenario than anything. Now, I understand that out of all the things that would happen while you're away from home, probably 90% of them you'll be able to just jump in your ride and get home, right? And so that's what everyone's hoping, is that you'll just be able to drive home. But what if you can't? What if you can't drive home? What if your vehicle is disabled? What if it's not even the end of the world thing, and it's just your car breaks down? This actually happened to me years ago. I was not married at the time, And it was back when cell phones weren't, you know, part of your life. They weren't attached to you, right? If you had a cell phone, you used it to make a phone call and that was it. It wasn't a big deal. And I had a cell phone, and it just happened that the battery was dead and I didn't have a charger on me. And I worked late. I would get off of work at like 1 o'clock in the morning, and I lived over 30 miles from home, and my vehicle broke down on the side of the road, and it was kind of out in the rural parts of the county where I was at that time. I couldn't call anyone. Truck broke down, and I just decided I was gonna walk home. And I walked 32 miles home. And I got there late the next morning, and it was a rough walk, and I was tired, and the next day my legs hurt really bad. But I walked nonstop all that distance. And so I'm here to tell you that those kind of scenarios can happen. And it could happen under really bad times. It could happen under apocalyptic times. I'm not speaking biblical apocalyptic, but just really bad times. People panicking and stuff. So we should probably carry, now this here, again, this is not show and tell. I'm not pulling anything out, I'm not showing anything off. And because I wasn't prepared, this is my loadout gear. This is not get home bag gear. This is loadout gear. This is a pretty good 3-day assault pack. It's got most of the stuff. This is a full IFAC, all kinds of stuff in it, some extra ammo. It's got water, some food, some clothes, some survival stuff. I actually pack pretty light. I'm not like some of these guys that's trying to prove that I can, ruck 90 pounds. I can ruck 90 pounds, but I don't need to ruck 90 pounds. I can't think of a scenario that, if I'm rucking 90 pounds, it's because I'm carrying 50 pounds of ammo with me. A rifle, doesn't hurt to have a truck gun. I mean, you should always have one of these on you. You should always carry one of those on you. If you live in a place that you can't carry one of those, you shouldn't live there. This is a chest rig. You've all seen it in my videos. This is a basic blowout first aid kit. It's not nearly as robust as this. This is just for, your wounds. Radio, ammunition. There's a survival kit in here. There's a pouch here with survival kit, gloves, all that kind of stuff. The point that I'm even showing you this is to have at least some kind of gear. Now, I would not recommend this stuff as your get home bag. There's probably too much stuff there for most people. I keep this in my truck because this is my get home bag. But I'm not saying that I would recommend this. Number one, this is very militaristic looking. And for most of you, unless you live out like me, most of you probably live in either suburban or urban areas or something like that, and you'll stick out like a sore thumb. Out here where I live, if you see guys out here, it's almost deer season. You see guys out hunting, you see guys out walking and stuff. There's tons and tons of vets. In fact, this part of the country here in the Ozarks has one of the highest concentrations of military vets. So you see guys out all the time in military gear and old BDUs, the old Woodlands and stuff. So it doesn't draw attention. Some of you it would be, so I wouldn't recommend necessarily that for a get home bag. When you're trying to be, incognito, you're trying to be gray man. So this isn't gray man for most of you, but for around here, no one cares. This is a very robust kit for a get home bag, but it's what I would carry as a get home bag because I know I can easily carry it. I ruck all the time. I ruck several miles at a time, several days a week. Some of you, that may not be the case. Maybe just a small little backpack that you could get at the store, like anyone would carry. Remember, it's a get home bag. Your whole focus is to get you home. Now, a lot of it depends on how far away. How far are you traveling? Are you traveling 30, 40 miles? That may be a 2-day trip. If you're 10 miles away, it's a grocery store, 10, 12 miles away, that's not that far. A decently healthy person should be able to do that in a day. If you're by yourself, change of clothes, maybe some socks, certainly. If you work where you have dress shoes, make sure you have a pair of decent slip-on shoes. They don't have to be great. They just need to get you home. And that's the big thing. I see a lot of people talk about get home bags and they push all this high-end gear. And I'm not opposed to having high-end gear if you can afford it. But if the get home bag's only purpose is to get you 10 miles from home, 10 miles back to home. It doesn't have to be super high quality. In fact, if that's the only purpose for that gear, that's probably all it will ever be used for. I mean, you may be able, once you get home, once you have to walk home because your truck is disabled because of an EMP, what you have when you get home, yes, you can use that for other things. But the whole point is to get you home. So do you need a $150 flashlight? Some $140 Surefire flashlight just for a 10-mile walk home? Probably not. Maybe a $10 or $15 flashlight would do just as well. Do you need a $400 rucksack to get you 10, 12 miles to home? No, probably not. A $30 one would probably do just fine. And the point that I'm getting at is not that you shouldn't buy good stuff or that the really cheap stuff is fine, is that a lot of people think that, well, I can't afford that really nice stuff, so I'll just have to wait. Go ahead and get what you can. I've advocated for a long, long time. I'm not a snob when it comes to gear and guns. My gear is not the superior stuff. It works, but it's not the superior stuff. But let's take, for instance, guns. A lot of people make fun of the cheap guns, the high points and stuff like that. If that's all you can afford right now, that gun is going to do much better at protecting you than a Glock that you can't afford, or something else that you can't afford that's on layaway. And most people don't do layaway anymore, but let's just say you go in, you put a Glock on layaway, and you're going to pay it off in 6 months, but maybe you could afford a high point right now. What if you need something in 6 months between now and then? So, don't focus so much. I'm not saying get the junky cheap stuff, but there's a lot of times there's that in between. And having at least some type of survival, food, medical, things to kind of keep you warm. It's cool right now, so having, like, I've got some thick socks in there. I've got some thermal, Henley type shirts, stuff like that to throw on. I got some gloves over here, so that if I was to break down or something would happen, I can layer up and be fine to get home. Again, you don't have to have all this. This is probably a really poor example. Some of you probably aren't going to see that and just like, that's horrible. I wouldn't have that as a get-home bag. Well, I wouldn't either. I mean, for most situations. The point is that we need to start preparing for this. I told you I was going to try not to ramble, and that's exactly what I've done, is ramble. I think we're pretty close to things happening. And it may not affect us that greatly in the immediate here in the United States, but it could. It could affect us. And so we need to be prepared for that. So you should have a firearm, you should have a survival kit, a medical kit, enough stuff to get you home if you're out at the grocery store, if you're at work or wherever, just in case. And then plan for that. If you're husband and wife, know where she's at and where you're at, have an idea, talk about how you're going to get home, so your wife knows which way you're coming home, if you have to walk or if you have to drive, all that kind of stuff. Talk about, my wife and I, we do that. We know that, like, if I'm at a grocery store that's X amount of miles away, we've already discussed this, of like, if something happens, it should take me this long to get home, and if I'm not back in this time, then, that's probably worrisome, right? Something's wrong. Have these conversations because, and don't do it out of panic and fear, but do it out of just, it's preparedness, right? It's preparations for the what ifs, and that's all it is. And as all these stuff gets crazier and crazier, there's more and more what ifs that could be reality. So folks, get your houses in order, plan for this kind of stuff. Again, you don't have to drop hundreds and hundreds of dollars. You could get a cheap gym duffel bag that probably most of you already have, or a backpack that maybe your kids have used or something like that, and just throw some basic stuff in it. You don't have to go out and spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars. I mean, if you have it, that's great. And I didn't spend hundreds, and this is an acquiring. Most of this gear, it's taken a few years to acquire. I didn't just go out and buy it yesterday. But if you're just starting, you can do it pretty cheap and then upgrade along as you go. The point is this is I think a very important thing that we should be doing right now to get ourselves prepared, because things could happen very quick. and it could change the world pretty quick and change our reality and how it affects us. And so we need to be prepared for that. Please be getting your houses in order, folks. Preparing yourselves mentally, physically, and spiritually. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.